everybody, it's once again Jesse Browning with Brown Mint Horror. I am here with Tom Jolliffe. Jolliffe.
Jolliffe, yeah.
Tom Jolliffe. And Tom Jolliffe, I have to say it with an accent. Not my southern Tennessee accent, but an accent that sounds a little more like how that should be sounding. So Tom Jolliffe, and he is a screenwriter, phenomenal screenwriter. Helping us out here with some interviews in the indie horror world, talking to us about it. And I just got done checking out one of his latest films that has been released, which is When Darkness Falls. Had the pleasure of watching that right before this interview, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Tom, if you would, go ahead. I'm going to pass the mic over to you. Tell us who you are and just, man, how you got into this.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Jesse. It's nice to be here.
Yes.
So I'm a screenwriter from the UK. I've been doing it now for just over, I'd say about 10 years, since I kind of started taking it a bit more seriously. And yeah, I kind of started off in short films, and then I made my transition into feature films about 4 years ago. So starting off mostly in low budget horror, and then I've kind of branched off into a few other genres as well. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. I've been quite prolific, I guess, as you've seen from my on my IMDb page.
Yes, it isn't IMDb the end all be all of making it these days, you know?
Yeah.
Just, look how important I am. Check out my IMDb, So question. So I grew up, I was always writing stories, little fan fiction stories here and there and original stuff. And that's always what I've always wanted to be. So how did you grow up, Tom? Did you grow up, loving film, wanting to write movies? How did that all start?
Yeah. I think I've always loved movies. So I grew up in like video stores. I'm that generation. So I'm even sort of in the UK from before Blockbuster, because we got it a little bit after you guys in America. So mine was always the Ma and Pa video store.
Yes.
And then, Blockbuster came in, took it over, but it was always the same. I just sort of spent hours in there looking at the video covers.
Fantastic.
And just be totally inspired. And then there'd come a time every now and again, I'd wonder maybe, one day I might pick up a cover that has my name on it. So that was probably the first inclination that I wanted to do something creative within film.
Yes.
Yeah. Then I got a sort of passion for writing. Started off more predominantly doing film criticism. And that started just doing reviews on IMDb, trashing people's films.
Yeah. The normal.
Yeah. Normal thing. And then I did a few articles here and there and started writing regularly for a website called Flickering Myth. And yeah, so then I sort of transitioned into wanting to write films myself. And that's really what started it off. But I've always had that passion for film since I was very young.
Gotcha. Is there any particular film that kind of, you mentioned the box art. That was really big for me when I was growing up, going into video rental stores, seeing all the different VHS cover art, and, getting a story in my head about the film before I even saw the film. Sometimes better, sometimes not. That pesky VHS box art can be very deceiving. So, is there, do you recall any particular film that you viewed when you were growing up that kind of sparked that?
I think in terms of the cover art, I used to always be drawn in by like the hand-drawn ones. So anything by like Drew Struzan, and he did loads of like memorable ones like Star Wars, Blade Runner, Masters of the Universe was one of my favorites, and that was my favorite film as a kid. So that's
Canon
probably
films,
the first, Canon, loved them. So that was my first film at the cinema, I think, was watching Masters of the Universe, and then just having all these other films on videotape as well, like Star Wars and everything like that.
Awesome.
So
were you a so I don't know if we're about the same age or not, but did you grow up with videotapes in the home? Like, did your folks buy them? Did you buy them? Or is it
Yeah,
more
we had,
renting?
I think, more renting. So renting would be like maybe like a once a week thing. And you know, my dad was one of those kind of dads that would kind of let us watch stuff that was above our age bracket. So, you know, quite early on, I'd seen Aliens, Predator, Terminator,
Yes.
loads of things I shouldn't. And you know, I always had this really vivid memory from around about 1988 watching Amsterdam, this like Dutch horror, but so not many people would have heard of it because it's from Holland. But
Right.
just from childhood, having vivid memories of this film that my dad was watching because my mum was out, and he just decided it was easier to let me and my brother watch it with him. Yeah, and that always stuck with me. It was one of those films where, like 20 years later, it wasn't until then that I watched it again.
Was it
And
terrible, or did it hold
no,
up?
it holds up very well. That film, it really does hold up well.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really good because it's this mishmash of like action and horror as well. Really good concept as well. So there's a serial killer stalking the canals of Amsterdam in a scuba suit.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's yeah, really good concept, and it's really kind of well done.
I'm into that for sure. Um, let's see here. So, is there any particular point that you recall? I mean, I'm sure you do. Is there a particular point where you were like, hey, this is what I want to do for a living?
Yeah, I think it was probably about sort of 10, 12 years ago. And when you're kind of just starting out and you're a little bit younger, you're a little bit naive and you think maybe it's going to be easier than it is.
Yeah.
And I had a few false starts, so I almost sold a couple of screenplays. I got quite close to, you know, grabbing some money and running away, but it kind of they all just sort of fell through at the last minute. And then I started trying to get short films, you know, to people to make.
Right.
And then, you know, a lot of times filmmakers, it all comes down to money, not being able to get a film made. So
Right.
I had a lot of false starts, even just trying to give scripts away. So that kind of pushed me into producing myself. And, you know, my first sort of credited film, I mean, I used to make loads of films with my brother, like home videos, but that's a bit different. But my first sort of credited film was one that I produced with myself with a friend. So that's what really kicked it off. And I just like 2 or 3 short films that I produced before getting my first feature. But I kind of needed those in place, you know, just to say that I'd done something to get that first sort of feature role.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a, let's see here. I'm on your IMDb page and looking at first feature. Would that have been Cyber Bride?
Yeah. I think Scarecrow's Revenge came out first, although I'd written Cyber Bride, I think, first before then. Yeah, it'll be one of those two, Cyber Bride or Scarecrow's Revenge. They're both as good as they sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I'll read this plot summary for Scarecrow's Revenge. A Viking warriors must step up when a heathen banished from her village gives up his mortal soul in exchange for the near indestructible form of a demonic scarecrow. As warriors fall to the vengeful scarecrow, it's down to Greta to save her village from annihilation. I mean, the cover art looks fantastic. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, I'm going to put this in the notes for sure. Everybody needs to check out Scarecrow's Revenge. And then
Yeah. From
Cyber
what I
Bride.
hear, I've been told it's appeared in Dollar Tree in the States. So you might see it in a bargain bin in Dollar Tree somewhere.
Hey, you know, maybe. It is on Tubi, and Tubi seems to be the go-to platform for indie horror. Would you say?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't got it in the UK yet, but I'm sure they're kind of like moving towards that way now. And
Right.
there's a new one from IMDb called Freevee over here as well. So we kind of got something similar coming here.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
The it's funny you mentioned the Dollar Tree. Do you have Dollar Tree in the United Kingdom?
We have something similar called Pound World.
Pound World. No, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Pound World, Poundland. Yeah, so you
I'm
get
writing that down.
Yeah, low budget DVDs and things there. We've got secondhand DVD stores as well, which are quite, I'm sure you've got loads over there as well, but
Oh,
they're
for
usually
sure.
a gold mine. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's probably loads of my films there.
Yeah, I have gone to Dollar Tree and spent $10 on 10 blind buys, and some of them some of them are pretty good though. Some of them are actually pretty good. And you're like, man, why is this in there? Let's see here. Cyber Bride. You want to talk about that for a sec? That would have been the first one that you had written, first feature.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd approached this company. They were looking for writers for a script, and I pitched them something, and we sort of back and forth on it a little bit, and they said, well, we've not really got much interest in that because they run everything by distributors. So they liked the script, so they came back to me and said, do you want to write Cyber Bride? And then they said the same about Scarecrow's Revenge. And I'm like, yeah, I like a good Scarecrow B movie and a cyborg film.
Right.
So, yeah, Cyber Bride was my kind of like my ode to Albert Pyun.
Now, tell me who that is.
So he directed, Nemesis, the kind of sci-fi action film, and Cyborg with Van Damme. So basically, yeah, he's a director. He started off in the Canon era. So he did Cyborg, and then he kind of moved doing like straight to video action, but he's done like innumerable films with cyborgs in. I don't know what he just has an interest in cyborgs apparently.
It's awesome.
But yeah, they're fun. Sometimes they're terrible, but sometimes enjoyably bad as well. So it was kind of like, I thought, yeah, I'd quite like to do a cyborg film. And yeah, really low budget, but yeah, it was an interesting one because we went through quite a lot of rewrites trying to find the perfect kind of balance for what their filmmakers could afford.
Right.
It's one that didn't quite come off, but I think there's bits in it I like, bits in it I'm not too keen on.
Looks like you also wrote a pretty interesting looking one called Witches of Amityville.
Yeah, that was that was probably the first one I was kind of really pleased with. I think it's a little bit campy, that kind of horror.
Uh-huh.
I think some people were maybe expecting a bit more like a sort of Conjuring kind of thing, but it's meant to be a bit more kind of like The Craft meets practical magic.
Right.
And it's got an interesting cast in it. So there's like 3 former Playboy models, and
well, you heard it there, folks.
Yeah.
Witches of Amityville appears to be one to check out.
But I mean, yeah. There's nothing, no nudity in the film. Just to let people know before they go in if they're expecting that.
Right. Man, it looks like
I've just written a sequel to that, so there's going to be a sequel to that one coming soon.
Oh, nice.
Salem Witches.
Holy crap. So let me see if this is the same one that I have over here. Is Leprechaun's Curse the same thing as Leprechaun's Game?
This is a bit confusing, this one, because there was one called, so between the UK, Germany, and the US, they've really mixed the titles up. So my one, I think, is called Leprechaun's Curse.
Yes.
It's the second film. So I did the second one, which I co-wrote. Yeah, it's called Leprechaun's Curse, where in the States and the UK, I think, but in Germany, the first film was called Leprechaun's Curse. So it's a bit confusing. So I don't usually get complimentary copies, so I have to buy these myself. And I almost bought the first film instead of my one because of the mix-up with titles. So it's a bit,
oh man,
yeah. So it's a bit odd. No, that was quite fun because usually there's a bit of a weird thing with low-budget horror distributors. They're not too keen on like comedy, they don't like swearing, they don't like nudity. So they have a list of things that they don't particularly like in the films. And I think
Right.
with some of these low budget horrors, if you strip away all the comedy and you can't kind of have a bit of a laugh with it, sometimes it doesn't really benefit the film. So that one, we could have a bit more humor in it. So I think, yeah, that was, I think the distributors are getting a little bit more open to having a bit more humor now.
Right.
Yes. So I can make jokes about, family jewels and, things like that.
Right. Is it I don't know if you've spoken to any writers here in America. Is it easier or more difficult in the United Kingdom to kind of get the screenplay that you want, that you've written out? Like, do you get a lot of pushback on some wording, like you mentioned family jewels and things like that?
Yeah. Well, I think what it is with my horror stuff, at least, most of it is coming from America. So it's usually American distributors that are, what they tend to do is they'll fund a film, and then the British producers over here will make the film for them. So I'm kind of working vicariously through American distributors. So I'm kind of working towards what their tastes are and what they think is, selling in the market at the moment. So that's why it's mostly creature features. But there's some things, yeah, I think it's to do with things like Amazon, to do with like streaming and Tubi and getting on TV, but they want to play it safe with like too much swearing and not that much nudity.
Right.
Yeah, because so it's I think they're a little bit more open to the humor though, because there was a point where they were thinking that when people watch a horror film, they just want it taken deadly seriously and they don't want any kind of humor, despite things like Nightmare on Elm Street, Evil Dead. You could list off a whole load of 80s classics that have this underlying humor to them.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's difficult in terms of making productions happen from the UK side. So we need kind of like the investment from America usually.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's not much of an industry per se over here, at least in the independent. Most of the money goes to the more kind of like studio productions, the well-known things like BBC and places like that.
Right. Let me see here. So I think I've only done one other interview with someone in the UK. It was actually our first interview ever for our Behind the Horror segment. It was for a film called Dead Again. Have you heard of it?
It rings a bell. Who was the filmmaker?
Stephen Smith.
Oh yeah. I've worked with Stephen a couple of times, so yeah, I know.
Oh, fantastic!
It's
yeah.
Like the UK industry is a really, really small world. So you always work with someone who works with someone, and everyone's sort of intermingling.
Yeah, I worked. Our first interview ever was with Stephen and Elliot Cable and Tony Fadil. I don't know if you know those guys.
No, no, not off the top of my head. But yeah,
Dead Again. It finally got a release here in America on DVD, and I picked up a couple copies. And I was going to send them over to the guys over there. And holy cow, to get a DVD from America to the United Kingdom was just astronomical. It was stupid. So we ended up not doing that. A $10 DVD was going to cost about $150 to get shipped.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem I have. If I want a complimentary DVD, most of the time it's coming from America. So right. Yeah, it would cost me more to have it shipped over because they're not going to pay the shipping as well. So it's just easier for me to just buy it myself.
So a question for you: how does it work? You get new release films on Blu-ray and DVD and things like that in the United Kingdom, but I guess they have manufacturers over there, or are they getting distributed from the United States? would you
So they'll
say?
manufacture. They will manufacture them from here. But at the moment, a lot of my films now in the UK is like really dying out as far as physical release. Unless you're like that kind of, Marvel and all that, Disney, which will always get something, or kind of special collector's editions. Criterion aren't going to release Scarecrow's Revenge, unfortunately. So
No, probably not. I mean,
yeah,
but you never know. I have some films in my Criterion collection. Actually, that's the top shelf up here.
yeah,
I have some Criterion films that I'm like, how the hell did they waste time and energy getting this? Like,
yeah,
like, why did they put this in here? But I guess every one of them has their spot, just like Scarecrow's Revenge, When Darkness Falls, Cyborg Brides. They all have their place in this world, okay?
yeah, definitely.
And they all have a spot on the shelf.
Yeah, but America. So supermarkets here, a lot of them are stopping selling DVDs altogether, and there's only really one sort of dedicated shop in the UK now, a chain of shops that does kind of DVDs and things. So yeah, a lot of the UK distributors just go streaming VOD and that's it.
Wow, man, that's
yeah.
So I have to ask. This is obviously a photo of this is my collection behind me. Do you still have a physical media collection?
I do, yeah. I still like to collect every now and again, mostly Blu-rays now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a place, I'll give a quick plug. There's a place here in Nashville called McKay's used books and more. That's where the majority of my collection, well, my collection comes from all over, but if I ever want to go bargain hunting, we're actually going to do a video for that. One could build a pretty good horror collection for not a lot of money if someone wanted to get started, and have some films. So that's going to be one of our videos we talk about. But you're talking the majority of the DVDs on that shelf there that I got at McKay's. They have a section in the middle that is, you might see something for, I don't know what the UK equivalent of this, but $1.25.
Yeah.
It just create, they're mass produced titles. And it's just the one, like stuff like Hostel and there's definitely some B titles in there as well. But a lot of the mainstream stuff that is available on every streaming platform now, you can find pretty cheap there. But they also have sections in there, just like horror, foreign, thriller, all these different sections in there, and you can find pretty much everything that you could think of. So McKay's, Nashville, if you're ever in the States, you need to check them out.
Yeah, that'll be my first stop then.
Yeah, you would definitely want to just load up. So let's see here. Tom, we're speaking with Tom Jolliffe, and Tom is about to engage in some horror trivia with us here. It's that next segment. So Tom has picked 70s horror trivia. So let's get that queued up here. And Tom is a real trooper because not a lot of people pick the 70s for whatever reason.
This is going to be embarrassing now.
We're going to go with it. So, Tom, if you're ready, are you ready? I'm ready.
I'm ready, yeah.
All right, let's do it. Okay, here we go. Question 1. And there's no prize for winning, so we're just going to see how much Tom knows. All right. Summer Isle is the setting for which famous horror film?
Summer Isle.
You've got 3 choices: Suspiria, The Dunwich Horror, or The Wicker Man. Tom's getting multiple choice.
The Wicker Man.
Wicker Man. That is correct. On Summer Isle, a group of pagans go to extremes in order to ensure a bountiful harvest. Here we go. Question number 2. A demon named Pazuzu makes an appearance in which horror movie? The Picture of Dorian Gray, The Blood Rose, or The Exorcist?
Is that The Exorcist?
It is The Exorcist. The mythological demon supposedly
Yeah.
has the head of a dog or a lion, and he takes possession of a young girl in The Exorcist. Who directed 1978's Dawn of the Dead? Argento, Joel Reed, or George Romero?
Mr. George Romero.
Hey, you got it right. All right. True or false? The Exorcist is based on a true story.
Oh, this is a difficult one. This is because it kind of is, but then I'm going to say true.
It is true. As if the simple idea of The Exorcist wasn't creepy enough, it really is based on an exorcism that happened in 1949. And I think you can actually go on, if you have access to Shudder, that streaming platform.
Yeah.
I think Shudder is actually doing they do some like little mini documentaries, and one of them is on The Exorcist, and I think they actually talk about that. Don't quote me on that, but I think they talk about it.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a look.
All right. Tobe Hooper, the acclaimed director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, initially hoped that his movie would get which rating from the Motion Picture Association of America? PG, R, or X?
I'm going to go out there and say PG. It's probably wrong.
PG. In hindsight, it was laughable to think that such a terrifying movie would obtain a PG rating. Let's stop for a second and talk about that. I always tell people that it seems like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is filmed today, shot for shot. Everything looked the same. I feel like that would be a PG movie now.
It's kind of, I guess it doesn't have the same impact it was then, because I think was it an X rating when it came out or something? I think it was quite controversial, wasn't it? So
yes, very controversial.
But I think a lot of things have become a little bit tame by today's standards.
Right, and I think it's the use of the imagery. It's very macabre, so people were very uneasy over that. And it being based off true subject matter around Ed Gein and things like that, I think it hit home. People could understand it. So moving along here, what year was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre released? 71, 74, or 77?
74.
You are correct. Released in October 74, the movie was immediately banned in some nations due to its disturbing violence. Quick question. What was your first horror film that you remember seeing, Tom?
That's a good question. I think aside from like 80s kids fantasy films, which are like really horrific compared to today, I think my like the Wheelers in Return to Oz and like Legend, all those creepy animatronics.
Yes.
But I think the earliest one I really remember was The Shining, probably.
Oh, yeah. Let me see here. I would have to say my first foray into the horror world was probably with my mother, and it was either Halloween 2 or we had, and this was recorded off of TV onto a VHS tape. So I had two that I used to love to put in. One was Halloween 2, and the other was there was a network that had like Afternoon of Horror, and they showed what was it? Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Yeah. And I think they also did Part 3. So you had 2 and 3 on one tape. And then also with that, I had Part 4 and Part 5 of Friday the 13th. So it was like an afternoon with Freddy and an afternoon with Jason was the marketing behind it.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Yeah, that tape, oh man. And I was like 9 years old. And And I just remember like I gotta have my tape. I gotta have my tape. So let's see here. Used to wear that thing out, man.
Yeah. I used to have a similar tape with Rocky 3 and 4 on it. So
yeah,
just wore the hell out of that.
Oh man. All right. Back to the questions here, guys. Another Exorcist question. How old was Max von Sydow during the shooting of The Exorcist? 44, 53, or 61?
44.
You are correct. They used extensive makeup to make him appear more than 70 years old.
That's the first film I remember seeing him in. And because obviously they made him look older, it just seemed like for like 50 years he looked the same age.
Yes.
Yeah. So that did confuse me.
Let's see here. How many people linked to the creation of The Exorcist died before the film was completed? They really like the Exorcist questions. 3, 9, or 12?
I'll say 3.
9. 9 people died during the film's production, leading many people to believe that the film was cursed.
See, that must be the ultimate cursed film then. I was assuming that maybe Poltergeist took that title, but yeah, that's a lot.
Right. Okay, this is a good one. Bette Davis starred in which horror film from the 70s? Daughters of Darkness, The Tenant, or Burnt Offerings?
I'll say, I'm not too sure on this one. Burnt Offerings.
You keep pulling them out, man. We're gonna go 2 more, okay? Because obviously you're a genius. All right. Which film had the tagline, "Pray it doesn't happen to you"? Shivers, Alice, Sweet Alice, or Rabid?
Oh, I'm trying to remember that one now. Alice, Sweet Alice.
No. Oh man, his crown has been removed. Rabid. One zombie spreads its plague to an entire city in Rabid by David Cronenberg. I'll have to check that out. I have not seen Rabid.
That's one. Yeah, I've not seen that either. I need to check that one as well.
And I think Cronenberg has a new film coming out as well. Have you heard about that?
I have, yeah. I can't even remember the title now. It looks good.
Looks like, let me see here.
Oh, Crimes of the Future, I think it's called.
Yes, Crimes of the Future. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, let's go one more question, and then we're going to get into talking about some snacks and then your film. A dead soldier from the Vietnam War comes home in which film? Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, Death Dream, The Legend of Hell House. Which one of those?
I don't think I've seen any of them. I'll say Hell House.
No, Death Dream. At first, his family is happy to see him, but in Death Dream, the reanimated soldier eventually goes on a rampage.
Well, that sounds quite interesting. That we'll have to check that one out.
Yeah. All right. Let's give it up for. There was the next. The next question was actually about a film that I plan on watching later this afternoon. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I've never seen it before. The 1978 film.
I lose track of which version I've seen. There's been about 2 or 3, hasn't there? So
I think this is the one with Donald Sutherland and oh my God, the guy who is in The Fly.
Oh, Goldblum.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum's in it.
I don't think I've seen that one. I've seen the memes, but not that one.
Right. Okay. Snacks. Snack section, everybody. All right. What are we snacking on today? For me, I have these over here. I have these, they are gummy bears, but they're sour gummy bears, but they're not bears. They're actually llamas. That's what I've got over here today.
Okay.
So not bad. I tried them. It was a blind buy. So Mr. Tom, what are you snacking on these days? What's your favorite snack in the UK?
I've bought a few things here.
Okay.
So I'm thinking my film is that we're going to talk about in a minute is set in Scotland. So I thought I'd get a couple of things that are like quintessentially Scottish. I don't know if you've ever tried this one before. It's called Iron Brew.
No.
So I can't describe the flavor because no one can. It's one of those drinks where it tastes like Iron Brew. That's all you can say. And then there's this one. It's going to come in reverse on this. So like a caramel. It's like wafer biscuit and caramel covered in chocolate. So they're Scottish. And I've got this one. This is Old Farts. Old Farts Ale. And another thing, this is probably one of my favorite snacks. It's similar to pork rinds, but this is like the UK version.
Okay. Pork scratchings?
So, yeah, pork scratchings.
I've never heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So where pork rinds are quite light and fluffy because they use just the skin, these go a little bit further into like the fat and sometimes a little bit of meat, and they're kind of like deep fried. So they're really healthy, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
This was my mum's pregnancy craving, so it's her fault that I like these.
Nice. Well, there you have it, folks. A very quick snack section. Mr. Jolliffe didn't disappoint for sure. Sorry, I don't have my gummy bears bag here. I left them upstairs, but Tom gave us some great selections here. So we'll definitely make sure to put those in the show notes for any of our Scottish listeners and anybody over the world that wants to try something different, maybe on a travel. So here we go. The film. This is what we're here for. When Darkness Falls. Take it away, Tom. What are we talking about with Darkness Falls here? What is it?
Okay, so there's two American girls on a trekking holiday in Scotland. So
already a bad mistake.
Yeah, bad mistake. Up in the Highlands. And they kind of encounter these two guys that are a little bit kind of off kilter. And one of the girls, Jess, is kind of like a little bit more straight-laced. She just wants to go and just get on with their trek and, you know, see a few sights. Whereas Andrea, a little bit more wild, she wants to stay for a bit and kind of get a few free drinks from these two guys.
Right.
So Jess goes off in a little bit of in a huff, and she comes back a bit later to find Andrea, and Andrea's gone missing.
Oh.
And then from there, it turns into a bit of a mystery thriller. So I won't say too much more than that, but it's, you know, like in the vein of Breakdown and The Vanishing and, you know, films like that. So yeah, Andrea disappears and then Jess has to try and find out what's happened to her in a kind of place with very few people, and, you know, she's not too sure who she can trust.
And there's also don't worry, everybody. There's plenty of Tom made sure there's plenty of blood and guts in there, and you know, stabbings and all that good fun stuff for the horror world.
Yeah.
Even it's pretty crazy. The guy that plays, well, you find out he's crazy in the third act. I'm just going to call him the Tyler Mane lookalike. Did you see that? I mean, he looks just like Tyler Mane, the guy that played Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie films.
I'm not familiar with Tyler Mane, but yeah, I know who you're talking about in terms of my film anyway.
Well, okay, so this is a reminder to myself as I'm making this podcast to for the video version on YouTube, I'm going to insert Tyler Mane and the guy who plays, what's his name in your
Beck.
Beck, yes. I'm going to put him and Beck side by side. It's pretty crazy. This is pretty spot on. So this was now you wrote this film. Tell me about the writing. Tell me about your writing process. What's it like? Do you think of an idea driving, or you scratch something out on a notebook, and what happens? What's your process?
So through a lot of my kind of commissions, like the low budget horror and things like that, Usually I'll get a start off point. So someone will come to me, we want scarecrows versus Vikings, or we want a film about witches. This one, myself and a friend were looking to make a film together. So the producer, director, and one of the actors in the film, Nathan Shepka, we wanted to do a film together and you make use of the Highlands, all the landscapes in Scotland, because they look amazing on film. And it kind of started from there, and we both kind of like the same kind of films, old school thrillers. So we were kind of inspired by things like Breakdown, Frantic, The Vanishing, and there's an old film that very few people have heard of called And Soon the Darkness, which is kind of similar. It has two American girls kind of on a cycling holiday in France. So the start off point is pretty much the same, and then we kind of skewed it off into something a bit different, a few more twists and turns.
Do you so as far as your writing process goes, you're positioned with this idea of, hey, can you write us a story about, scarecrows versus Vikings or whatever it may be? Do you immediately what's your writing process like? Do you immediately sit down in front of a computer? Do you sit down with a notebook, sketch out some ideas? Like,
usually, so it might be that I back and forth with maybe the producers on, things that they want in the film and things that they don't want. And then I'll kind of sketch it out into, like a beat sheet or a treatment, just where basically, scene by scene, to just say what happens. And then once that kind of gets greenlit, then I'll just go straight into the script itself.
Right on. Is there any particular place you like to write?
Anywhere really. I don't mind writing in coffee shops. To be honest, I've done that a little bit less so since the pandemic. So I used to do write in coffee shops all the time. But then, after the pandemic, I just switched to writing back at home, which can be difficult in terms of distractions. But I just started using like local libraries as well now. So I find they're quite quiet, and I'm more inclined to, get a lot done in one go.
Right on. I think that's the biggest part, is finding a place where you can actually get some work done.
Yeah.
Do you have a certain time that you allow yourself, or you just go until you don't want to go anymore, or what's that like?
I don't really have like set routines really. Used to be a time when I would do it before work. So I'd spend an hour in a coffee shop before work, go to work, and then, maybe do a little bit more in the evening, or, do a bit on my days off. But I kind of, I just find moments when I can do it, really.
Right on. So with this film here, is there any particular scene that you wrote? Let me ask you this. Did you write anything that you thought was great but didn't make the cut?
To be honest, not really. This is probably the closest of everything I've done that stayed true to the script. I think because I'd worked quite closely with Nathan, and we know each other quite well, I knew what he would do and what he would be able to deliver on film. And then he was quite happy to stay, pretty much true to the script. There's only a few minor changes in there. So he added a couple of things that would be more like local Scottish dialect, because he's from Scotland. So a little bit of like slang he added in a couple of moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to, which I think, gives an extra dimension.
For sure.
Yeah.
So,
but, I mean, yeah, some of my other films, they've like altered endings, or they've changed the beginnings. And usually that's just down to things like a location becomes available or a location is unavailable. Yeah, so it's just one of those things, really. I never expect it to be, 100%, but I would say When Darkness Falls is probably the closest of everything that I've had out so far.
Awesome. And When Darkness Falls was released on the 21st of June, and it's available for streaming on Amazon as of right now. And I guess you can pick it up on physical media off Amazon as well, true, right?
Yeah, so yeah, on Amazon at the moment, and then there'll be a few more platforms coming soon.
Excellent. So Tom, I'm going to jump into this next section here. What are you currently watching? Anything good?
So TV or just film?
Let's go film. What was the last movie that you watched?
Last movie I watched today, I watched Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, nice. That's on my list.
Yeah. It's not, I've kind of grown a bit tired of the Marvel films. It's not my cup of tea really, but I think I went in there for Raimi. And yeah, it was quite good actually. It surprised me. I didn't expect to like it that much, but I think it's got a few kind of classic Raimi moments, and there's a lot of references to a lot of his older things, like his Evil Dead films.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I think for me, it's funny you mentioned kind of getting tired of the Marvel films and things like that. My wife and I actually sat down and watched all of them over the course of several weekends because we hadn't seen them all. I'd only seen, one here and there. So watching them in sort of like the timeline order of everything that happened, you can do that through Disney Plus. We spent several weekends doing that. And I think for me, when a new one comes out now, I'm kind of more excited to view it, as opposed to maybe a fan who spent years, a better part of a decade or more, seeing all these films in theaters and one after the other. So I could see where the exhaustion could set in. What am I watching? We just finished also on Disney Plus. We just finished Kenobi the other night. Loved it. Did you watch it?
Oh yeah, I finished that the other night as well.
Man, yeah. I could have saw that whole thing in theaters and sat through the entire thing. What about you?
I wasn't too keen at first. I think the problem was I'd watched it right after Stranger Things,
okay.
which I really liked. But I think Kenobi, it kind of warms up from episode 4 onwards and ends well.
Yes.
It was the first 3 weren't gripping me too much, but I think it did end quite well.
So from a screenwriter standpoint, when you watch a film, do you ever kind of critique things as you're watching them?
Not too much, really. I'm not too bad anymore. I think what I've learned from being a producer as well, and actually being the process of movie making, is that, it's difficult to judge writing, because by the time it's got to screen, it's been through so many processes and so many kind of producers, distributors, and people kind of saying, well, let's put this in, let's take this out, that you're not quite sure how much is, the screenwriter is left.
Right.
Particularly on big, like, conglomerate kind of things in Disney, where there must be 30 or 40 people have a kind of creative decision that they can put in the film.
Right.
So, and I'm also quite pragmatic, I think, about how difficult it is to make a film. So, I'm always quite kind.
Yes, you don't judge them too much when you're watching you're
even
not
if it's
looking
not
at the screen.
Too great,
yeah, you're not looking at the screen like, oh, I would have rewritten that. I would have brought it in here. What are these guys thinking?
Yeah.
Well, Tom, everybody, we've been speaking with Tom Jolliffe, screenwriter for When Darkness Falls and several other films we've been talking about today. We're at the point where what we'd like to do is have Mr. Tom give a little motivation to anyone who is looking to be an up-and-coming screenwriter, filmmaker, actor, whatever. Tom, I'll let you take it away. What advice would you give your older self or someone new to this line of work?
Okay, I would just say you need to, firstly, adjust your expectations to, that not expect it to be like an easy money-making kind of scheme. which it isn't. And, you know, just really persevere and be passionate about it. I think also what's quite important is, you know, when you're starting out, if you're finding it difficult to get your scripts out there or to get them made, is to kind of take control and, you know, do things yourself. So if you can network and get to know, you know, if you don't know anything about cameras or anything like that, you can network and get to know directors, cameramen, and, you know, maybe go out and try and get a film made yourself, to really kind of like kickstart your CV really. And also I'd say, yeah, just on networking again, the more you network, the more kind of you discover that, you know, the whole industry is quite a small web really, particularly from my side as the UK. I mean, I've got a couple of stories. So one is my dad was at a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and he just happened to be speaking to this guy. And the guy kind of starts mentioning that he finances films. So he's in the business. He's not done too much, but he's produced a film and he's financed a film. And it was a film called War of the Worlds.
Oh, wow.
And I'd just done a film called, I've just written an adaptation of War of the Worlds as well. And as it transpires, he's talking to this guy who's financed a film that I've written.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that not crazy?
That is, because my dad's not in film at all. So he's just not entirely connected. He just phones me up and he says, was that film you said the other, you know, a few weeks ago that you wrote, was it called, did you say you wrote a War of the Worlds adaptation? I'm like, yeah.
Nice.
And he was just telling me that. I'm working with another guy in America as well, on a film that's been kind of going for 2 years in pre-production and should be going into production later this year. And he started off in short films and he's just made his break into kind of features. He's just done a job on a feature film. And he was telling me about it. He was just working as a script supervisor on that, helping out. And I said, oh, that's good. So you know, you'll have a few connections there. Anyway, he sort of, we stopped speaking and then he went away and then he phoned me back sort of 10 minutes later and he said, I've just been looking at the film I did. And I just noticed in the credits that it was produced by this guy, Daniel Zarilli. And he's just produced another film with me called Renegades, which is starring Danny Trejo and Lee Majors.
Oh, cool.
So it's just all these connections that you don't even realize sometimes that, you know, you work with him, who works with him, who works with them, and then someone else works with you again. So yeah, the more you can network and get to know people, the more kind of openings you might have.
So I guess to sum it up, work hard, like put the work in, and network with everyone and help everyone.
Yeah, that's very important as well. So just, don't be a douchebag, because
don't be a douchebag. We'll put that. Yeah. Don't be a douchebag. Come on. We're trying to make a movie that everybody can enjoy. We're in an industry that everyone, you know, glamorizes and wants to be a part of. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in this? I mean, it's a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. I'm on the side of speaking to you all, to actors and to filmmakers, screenwriters. And the one thing that I always take away is, my God, they wear so many different hats, you know, in this line of work. And if anyone is interested in trying to get on board into the film industry, the best advice that I have is, just like Mr. Tom said, just do it, get involved, do something, ask to help out on a film, you know, start searching out locally, look it up in your town and see if anyone's producing a film. And I think that that's a really important part, because, you know, our eyes make it real. So if I was to if I would really wanted to be in a film and I got the job to hold a boom mic, and that's all I got to do, but seeing that film being produced, you know, it makes it real to me. It kind of sets the passion ablaze even more so. Would you say?
I think, definitely. I think it's it's just good to do. I think what I never intended to sort of end up in producing or anything like that. But it kind of came as needs must, but I think it held me in good stead. And I think when you're making films, especially if you're doing micro budget or, very low budget, there's not really too many excuses not to make a film nowadays. You could shoot something on an iPhone, but I think, it's good to try and know a little bit about different things. If you've got a talent for photography, you could take that into, camera work. But I think, I've learned that I've been quite good at multitasking. So if you're doing very low budget stuff, it's good to, so I've been, I've produced a film, I've been a runner on my own film because, I'll just do it myself.
Right.
I've done makeup, production design, I've composed a couple of films, I've acted in them just to save hiring another actor.
Nice.
I'm no good, but never mind.
Were you the Scarecrow in Scarecrow's Revenge?
It's funny you say that. I was a corpse in one of my shorts.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah. I've done that. And it's just one of those things. I think the more you can do, and if you know people that can direct, shoot and edit, it cuts down a lot on budget really. So, my brother can shoot, cut, grade and edit. So he's doing like potentially the work that might be going to 4 different people if you were going to, hire each individual role.
Right on.
So, you can get you can get multitaskers and you can put a film together as long as you work well within your means and you don't get too overly ambitious with your idea.
Right. Well, Tom, it's been fantastic chatting with you. I would love to do it again sometime. So keep us posted on anything that new that comes out. Everyone can check out Tom's latest film, When Darkness Falls, like I said, on Amazon, and more streaming platforms to come. Tom, thank you so much. Is there any final words you'd like to say?
No, just thanks for having me. I've had a good time.
Oh, well, thanks. Absolutely. Thank you for the snack recommendations as always. And I look forward to speaking with you again, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
All right. Take it easy.
You too, buddy. Thank you very much.
See ya.